TCU and North Carolina have the opportunity in a standalone game to make a statement. Is Bill Belichick a distraction for his team?
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, your team every day. It's a crossover edition. Locked On Horned Frogs, Locked On Tar Heels. Isaac Shade in the box next to me. He hosts Locked On Tar Heels. Also hosts Locked On College Basketball with our friend Andy Patton as well. And we're talking about a season opener. We're brought to you today by FanDuel, by the way. We'll tell you later on the show how you can get on the action at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. Thank you for making these shows your first listen. And Isaac, I know like traditionally you are a basketball guy at heart. But North Carolina football getting a lot of attention. What has this been like since Bill Belichick took the job and suddenly this team is front and center in the national conversation?
That's the weird thing, man. The fact that North Carolina – also, great to be together, Sim Cox. Man, this is awesome. Really looking forward to Labor Day. It's going to be great. Dude, it's so weird for North Carolina to be positioned in this way from a football standpoint. Like, the whole thing was surreal. Literally – I don't know if you remember, there was this whole lead up where it was like everyone knew it was going to happen, but it wasn't officially being announced. And then finally they announced it on a Wednesday night back in December. The reason I remember is because literally the next morning, my wife and I were surprising our kids with a trip to Disney World. And I was like, I don't have time for this right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really been odd and strange. And you keep saying like, Bill Belichick is the head coach. Like it's just so weird. Like he had his fall camp started this weekend, and just even like that first press conference, it's like this is really happening. And that's the thing is I just keep saying surreal is the word.
Well, let's get this out of the way at the start because I know like you mentioned the lead up. There was the Bible that he basically presented North Carolina with when he was negotiating to get this job. He wrote a book. He was doing a press tour, a lot of attention around his relationship with Jordan Hudson. Is there any tension here, Isaac? Like how real is that? Or is a lot of this just kind of gossip and fodder because it's, obviously fun to talk about?
I think it's more the latter, Stephen. It's been great offseason content for the national media and for all sorts of people to look at and discuss. And I think, like, let's just remember even back to the Bill Belichick Patriots. Anytime there's anything happening, it's all any of us wanted to talk about, right? And that has carried on. And so I think that's the thing is it's anytime he steps, hey, Bill Belichick usually walks with his right foot first, but today he started with his left foot. And so, like, it's going to be a thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I recently had incoming linebacker Kamori House on the show and asked him about it. Like, has this been a tough thing for you guys? He's like, no, we just don't even pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. Like we're in it every day and like in the football of it every day. And so all the hoopla of all the media circus of it, we just don't even stick our heads up out of the sand to pay attention to it. It's funny, Stephen, I've joked that Bill Belichick has asked Jordan Hudson to just be crazy all offseason so that people aren't paying attention to what's actually happening on the field. That's been my little running joke throughout the offseason. But no, ultimately for the players, I don't think it's an issue at all. And honestly, it feels like it's kind of calmed down now as we've gotten closer to actual football happening.
Yes, and the football's happening soon. At Media Days, Sonny Dykes was discussing. So a few years ago, TCU opened against Deion Sanders in Colorado, which was also a big lead up. And honestly, Isaac, like they fell flat on their face. They weren't prepared. There was a lot of roster turnover. It was Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders coming out party on a national stage. From a roster standpoint, I mean, what do you feel like? Is there going to be some continuity here? Like how many new faces are they trying to implement? You got new schemes. Do you have a sense of what this team's going to be when they take the field against TCU? Because it's a fascinating question.
It really is. No, there is not much continuity. There are 70, not 17, 70 new players on this roster. And it's an absolute crazy thing to have to try. And unlike the NFL that Bill Belichick is used to, you ain't got 4 preseason games to get to work all those kinks out, right? Like the TCU game, that's the game where you get that. And even in this portal era, as we all know so well, you don't even have necessarily the same squad you had for spring practice. And so it's all brand new. And so in terms of expectations of continuity, and it's like if this was last year, it would be like, well, there's 70 new faces, but at least you can hand the ball to Omarion Hampton and watch him go, right? There isn't that. And so there's so much unknown like that we could fast forward to December, Cox, and you could say Carolina won 4 games or Carolina won 9 games, and neither result would shock me because of the unknown of this. And this is fast forwarding ahead a little bit, but also because Carolina's schedule is very doable in a lot of ways. And so we'll see what happens with that. Your question also brought up one I'd been curious to ask to you about, just the weirdness of the fact that TCU played Dion in that first game, and now we'll play Bill Belichick in that first game. Probably the two, as I can remember it, at least 2 most like hyped, all of a sudden, like, wow, this is crazy moments. What is it like to be kind of the other team in both of those moments where you just kind of get to slide in and play ball?
Well, I think there's some anxiety for TCU fans because of what happened the last time that they were in a situation like this. But I've been on the record this offseason, like, I think it's a great thing for TCU because, honestly, I mean, after that loss to Georgia in the national title game, this program has taken a back seat on the national stage. Like, there was a ton of hype around the Colorado game they lost, that disappointing year. Quietly in the back half of last season, they turned things around and made a bowl game and won their bowl game and ended up winning 9 games. But I don't think a lot of people know that. I mean, you look at where they're picked in the Big 12, it's 7th, 8th, sometimes 5th, but it's kind of middle of the pack. And internally, I believe this is a group that feels like they should be playing in Arlington for a Big 12 championship at the end of the year. They're bringing a lot of players back. Josh Hoover, returning quarterback, who put up really big numbers last season. So, as you said, I don't know how good North Carolina is going to be, but I know at least on Labor Day when they play the Tar Heels, there'll be a lot of eyeballs on the TV. And if you win that game, then suddenly it's like, okay, hey, look at TCU. They're back in the picture. And a couple weeks later, you play another ACC opponent in SMU, which made the playoff last year. So you have a couple of chances early in the season to sort of put your best foot forward. And I feel like they're banking on doing that because they have so many returning players, especially in the transfer portal era. I want to get into your quarterback in segment 2, Gio Lopez from South Alabama. Yeah. But one thing that I brought up too about Belichick, you talk about the football starting and that being like a good thing for everybody. He's got to have a chip on his shoulder, right, Isaac? I mean, he was fired from New England. Like, he was let go, and the NFL basically said, we're not interested. Like, you did your thing. You're amazing. You won all these Super Bowls, but we don't want to deal with that anymore. So this is his chance, right, to show that he's still a really good football mind and a good football coach in the new world of college football.
And I think the chip on his shoulder also extends to people saying, like, Bill Belichick's not going to be able to do it in college football. He's never going to coach a game at North Carolina. Like, I think all of that, he's just internalized, right, and been like, all right, cool, that's fine. But yeah, I think he's very much playing with a chip on his shoulder. But at the same time is thinking, like, I mean, if you're a competitor, you don't want to lose any football games, but you also recognize, like, hey, we're behind the 8 ball in a lot of ways, right? Like, he started after the portal was already open, right? They're really, it's been a lot to get this roster put together. And so I think he also is very realistic about what's possible in year 1 here, but also knowing in the portal era, heck, you can turn it around in one offseason and get trucking. So I think, to your question, the thing is, can the Belichick way of doing things, the almost going back to basketball, the John Wooden level of obsessiveness with details, can that win out in college football where teams often find themselves doing little things wrong and costing themselves football game. Can Carolina be that level of discipline and detailed to win things, even in a year where they weren't fully able to get all the recruiting and prep that they needed to?
When we come back, two quarterbacks that might be some of the best kept secrets in the country. We'll discuss that here on a crossover edition of Locked On Horned Frogs, Locked On Tar Heels. FanDuel. Baseball season is in full swing. There's games every night of the week. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. But I want to tell you about this game, right? We're talking about TCU in North Carolina. This line has moved a lot over the last few months. Frogs now 3.5-point favorites in this ball game. I like that. I like TCU to cover. Isaac might disagree, but he can't talk right now, so it doesn't matter what you think. Over-under, 58.5 points. I would stay away from over-unders in season openers. I think there's a lot of, variables there that you can't really predict. But if you think this is going to be a high-scoring affair, you could go that way. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. If you've ever been interested and you want to join, it's the perfect time to do that. New customers, you bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. It's super easy to use. They've got promotions and deals going on all the time. And as I said earlier, with baseball season, you got games every night of the week. FanDuel, give it a try today. So bringing Isaac back into the conversation, Gio Lopez from South Alabama. I guess the most interesting thing to me, Isaac, he's a mobile guy, and maybe I'm missing this, but he looks like he really is a dual threat player. North Carolina, obviously a very pro-style background with his coaching staff and Freddie Kitchens.
Right.
How do you think they're going to try to meld his skills with what they would traditionally do on offense?
The funny thing is I'm assuming, just as you are, Stephen, that it's going to be Gio Lopez as QB1, and we'll get to that in a second. But Max Johnson, Brad Johnson's son, who actually started the first game for Carolina last year, had a pretty gruesome leg injury, is back and fully cleared and ready to go. And so there is actually a legit quarterback battle going on, where Belichick, at his opening press conference for fall camp on Saturday, discussed like we don't know our timeline, but when we've determined it, we'll announce it. We'd rather make the right decision than a quick decision. And so a lot of years, I don't believe those kind of things. Like a couple of years ago when Mac Brown was like, I don't know, it might be Drake May, it might be Jacoby Criswell. I was like, oh, okay, Mac, that's cute, right? Legitimately, because of that pro style thing that you discussed, I think Max Johnson, if he is truly back up to speed, might have a shot at being QB1. That said, let's go back to Gio Lopez, because I think he has the leg up. He was the guy that went with Carolina to ACC Media Days a couple of weeks ago. So, there's an indication at least of something, unless Bill Belichick is playing chess like usual. I think he is a guy that legitimately, he has a higher ceiling than Max Johnson. I think he has a lower floor than Max Johnson. And ultimately, I think true freshman Bryce Baker, who's probably third on the quarterback depth chart, has the highest ceiling of any of them. He's just behind the 8-ball because he's a true freshman. And so with Gio, it's going to depend on his level of can he make all the throws that Freddie Kitchens in his offense and Bill Belichick are going to ask him to make to go along with what his legs can do. Can he, we in any sport in this portal era, we always wonder when guys up transfer now up to the ACC level from South Alabama, from the Sun Belt, how does that translate? If it translates okay and he can pick up an advanced system, then he'll be in good shape. And the key is staying healthy, always with a dual threat quarterback. Carolina's been able, one of the things they have been able to do in the portal is get a whole bunch of beef on that offensive line. So that helps in a big way. Ultimately, I think he's going to be able to do it, right? It's not like Gio Lopez was a guy that Mac Brown brought in and he's a holdover. This is a guy that Bill Belichick and Mike Lombardi went and got after spring camp was over and brought him in at that point. And so that tells me that he's a guy that they truly believed could do what they needed him to do. And so I've got faith that can happen, because good grief, we know Lombardi's track record as a GM, and I believe in that. And so I think Lopez will ultimately be able to do it. He's just got to beat out Max Johnson first.
And I forgot about the Mike Lombardi connection too. There's just so many names
Right?
when you're going down that coaching staff. It's funny to see. Well, the other QB in this game, Josh Hoover.
Yeah.
I'll be on the record, Isaac. I was wrong about this dude. Like a couple of years ago, Chandler Morris was the starter, and I did multiple shows where I was like, you can't go into the season with Josh Hoover as your backup quarterback. Like you have to go find a more experienced player, because I didn't really know much about him. He was lightly recruited. He came over with Sonny after Sonny took the job at TCU. But I don't want to just narrow it down to intangibles. But like he's got that it factor. Like you can tell the team just loves him. They rally behind him. They play hard for him. And he put up big numbers without really any running game, like traditional running game. They sort of made some changes in the back half of the season, used Savion Williams. So I'm fascinated to see how Bill attacks him, because I know like that's part of the Belichick lore. He's going to hone in on what you do and try to take it away. And it's Steve, right? His son is the DC.
That's correct. Yep. Came over from Washington.
Yes, come over from Washington. What's that relationship like? I mean, is it Steve's? Is he doing the play calling? Like, I'm sure Bill will have a heavy influence, but what do you get the feel of how they're kind of divvying up responsibilities on that side of the ball?
That's a great question. Frankly, it's something that we're probably going to have to wait to see until it actually unfurls, because as you talked about the Belichick lore, famously, he doesn't give you any more than he has to so that you don't get an edge. I think that he will. I like how you said it there, Stephen. I think he'll have a hand in it, but I think he's going to do what he can to let his son cook, as the kids say these days. Interestingly, he had gone and spent some time up at Washington last year, like leading into the season and kind of being with them a little bit. But I would imagine he's going to let him coach it on defense. And then if things aren't going well, obviously then a head coach will step in and do more. But yeah, that father-son dynamic is always interesting. And I think for my money's worth, Bill would be at his best to step back and let things play out, because you don't want a situation where he's not doing that on offense with Freddie Kitchens, but he is, because it's his kid on defense, even though it's like defense is his calling card. I think that needs to be able to be independent on both sides of the football, but we'll see what happens.
For TCU fans sitting here, give me 2 or 3 names, whether it's like transfer guys or players that are holdovers of, hey, North Carolina, this is who they're counting on this year to be big time playmakers.
Let's stay with that Washington thing we were just talking about. Steve Belichick brought a whole bunch, 4 or 5 different dudes came with him from Washington. 2 on the defensive side of the ball I want to point out. Number 1 is Thad Dixon, who's a cornerback. I think he could play just about anywhere in the secondary, if we're being honest, but had 2 seasons at Washington, 2 seasons before that at Long Beach City College. So he's an old head coming in, just has a good, good energy, like kind of talks a big game, like is coming in and just has some bravado. And sometimes you need that. Like Carolina's weakness at a massive level in the Mac Brown 2.0 era was their defense. And so Carolina needs some dudes on defense. And I think Thad Dixon will be one of them. In the middle of that defense, another guy coming over from Washington is a guy I referenced earlier, who's Kamori House. He's a linebacker. Man, I really like him. I think he's going to add a lot to this defense. The problem is probably my biggest question mark on defense is just not a player specific conversation, but is the defensive line. And so I think the linebacking core and the secondary is going to have a lot of work to do. On the other side of the ball, I mentioned Omarion Hampton earlier. He was like the straw that stirred Carolina's drink last year. Like you just trust him and he goes out. So the big thing is, how do you replace Omarion Hampton? The cliche, first off, you can't. But secondly, I think the guy that gets first crack at it is a holdover, and that's Davion Gauss, a.k.a. Bullet Goss. And so he's got a similar running style and can do a lot. So I think that's the running back to watch for. And then Jordan Shipp is a returning wide receiver who's got a lot of hype. He was one of Carolina's representatives at ACC Kickoff. And so that's just a couple names on both sides of the ball to watch from the Tar Heels. What about for the Frogs there, Simcox?
So at receiver, Eric McAllister, who was a transfer from Boise State a couple off seasons ago. And Jack Besh and Savion Williams got so many headlines last year at receiver that I I remember when I was looking through like stats and stuff, getting ready for, this incoming year, I was like, yeah, Eric had a nice year. And then I looked and I was like, wait, he had 700 yards receiving. Like I had no idea that he was that productive. Had some big touchdowns against Kansas and Texas Tech that were like kind of game-changing plays. So he's stepping into that wide receiver 1 role this season. I expect him to have a big year. Defensively, I think Bud Clark, their safety, is like an adjunct professor at this point. I believe this is year 19. Famously had the pick 6 against J.J. McCarthy in that Michigan playoff game that sort of, kicked off the good vibes in that one, and is returning. He's one of those guys, revenue share has helped him out a lot. Like he could have been an NFL player this year, could have gone to the draft, but it was like, hey, if I can make some money here, like I'll stick around for one more season. So a lot of experience in the back end of that defense. And then Devin Deal, edge rusher, who came over from Tulane last season. He led the team in sacks, and he's at the stud linebacker spot, which in Andy Avala's defense is like stand-up, pass rusher. He'll drop into coverage at times, but that's the guy that they're expecting to get to the quarterback on a consistent basis and really be the leader of this defense. Okay, so we need to get to like, predictions and those types of things. I also want to ask Isaac, though, when we come back, is it possible, like what would have to happen for UNC football to take the headlines away from UNC basketball? We'll get into that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, Locked On Tar Heels. All right, so standalone game on Labor Day, Isaac, and one of the most famous football coaches ever. What would this program have to do to – I know North Carolina basketball has not only fans like that are associated with the school, but just people that love hoops. Could they get to a level where it's kind of on par with the hype and everything that comes with UNC hoops?
Maybe. I don't see a world like I'll say it this way. Like think about the recent years of North Carolina football. Like Drake May comes in and just goes bonkers. Mac Brown comes back. Bill Belichick takes over as head coach. Through none of those, like if I do a football centric show on Locked On Tar Heels, for example, versus a basketball centric show, the audience is cut by 2/3, maybe 3/4. And what I like to say is people vote with their feet, and it's just people come to Carolina to I don't mean like students. I just mean people come to watch Carolina for the basketball. And so I think it would have to take half a decade of sustained success or something like that, and not just sustained ACC success, like sustained national success where it's like, oh, this is a thing now. The problem, though, is Bill Belichick is the only head coach in all of FBS that is in his 70s. Nobody else is that old. So, how long does he have? 3-5 years if he sticks around? Does he go back to the NFL? What happens with any of that? Who takes over after them and after him? And can they maintain the level of success he's had if he has that level of success that we're talking about that would cause Carolina football to rival Carolina basketball? So could it happen? Yes. I even think about like SEC football schools that have raised up on the basketball side. Like I'd be curious to have the same question and talk with like our buddy Zach Blackerby that hosts Locked On Auburn. Like with all of Auburn's basketball success, has it risen to the rival of football? Or the guys that Locked On at Alabama, with everything Nate Oates is doing down there. And I feel like they would say no. They would say no, like football still far outweighs what basketball is doing from an audience standpoint, despite it. And so I think that would probably be my answer too. Like it could. I just think give me the under on that happening, whatever that would be.
Right. No, that makes sense. Okay, so Nation's going to be watching on that Monday night in a couple weeks. I respect Bill Belichick. I think it's going to be an interesting game because of all that roster turnover. I just feel like, Isaac, the continuity TCU has coming back on offense and defense is going to win the day. I believe offensively they might struggle with some of the things that Steve and Bill throw at them, but they'll adjust. And I think defensively is where, which is funny to say for a Sonny Dykes team, but with all the changes with North Carolina's offense, I think defensively is where they could shine in this ball game and just sort of, whether it ends up being Max Johnson or who we expect in Gio Lopez, make it really tough on that offense. But sold out crowd, I I'm going to take TCU to cover, but it's a 3.5-point line. I think this is probably a game within 1 or 2 scores, more likely 1 score. I believe it'll be competitive throughout. I got TCU winning. What's your thoughts on this game? How do you feel about his debut on Labor Day?
You lined it up almost exactly where I'm at, Stephen. I think I'm, as you said, so excited. I think the standalone game, the ESPN, the Labor Day, that's next level. I think I can't even be you said, don't take the over under on points on week 1. I'd love to get an over under on media credentials handed out for this game, right? That's going to be absolute craziness, both at a local level, at a regional level, at a national level. Everyone's going to be there for that. And so that's going to bring all sorts of intrigue. I do not know what to expect from this team on either side of the football. My understanding is that they've put up some black fencing around where the defense or black screen around where the defense mostly is at fall camp. And people are like, I don't know what scheme they're going to run on defense. It's that level of who knows level. Wow. And so because all of that and the fact that that's now less than a month away and this team's trying to put it all together, I think despite the level of detail that a Bill Belichick team strives to get to, you can't get that all figured out by week 1. And conversely, as you've talked about a couple of times, Simcox, TCU brings all of that holdover and consistency and continuity. And we're seeing that all over college athletics right now. The teams that can get themselves together more quickly, whether it's football, basketball, or any other NCAA sport, are the teams that are winning at a higher level. So I think the wise money, the smart thing is to go with TCU because of Carolina's unknown and TCU's known. That just makes sense. I'm with you. I think TCU would cover, but I don't think it's a blowout, right? Somewhere from just outside that 3.5 of the line to 7 or 8. I would have it in that range somewhere, with Carolina losing that first game of the Bill Belichick era. That said, come for me if it goes wrong, Carolina fans, and I will gladly eat some crow on that one.
Yeah, the only over-under I'm touching in this game is if they have an over-under for shots of Jordan Hudson, camera shots of Jordan Hudson during the game, I'll take the over no matter what it is. We'll have coverage leading up to kickoff and post-game coverage after. So Locked on Horned Frogs, subscribe on YouTube. Locked on Tar Heels, Isaac Shade. You see his Twitter handle below there, at Isaac Shade. Plenty of basketball coverage too. But right now, we're talking football. Isaac, thank you so much, man. This was fun.
That was great.
And yeah, we'll revisit here soon as we're getting close to kickoff.
It's coming, buddy. Thanks so much. Good luck to the Frogs this season, other than that game, obviously. But, man, it's going to be fun. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
That's it. Locked on Horned Frogs, Locked on Tar Heels. See you tomorrow, everybody.